First things first, we need to answer what is a main pop boy? It's a boy or man who makes pop, shocker, and this term does get used a little loosely because often that artist will have some R&B adjacent, maybe some hip hop, just other genres in their discography as well. The main part of it indicates, like a main pop girl, if you will, that they're likely a household name or that they have standing in their genre. This isn't solely numbers based, though it is usually part of it, but this artist has got to prove that they're able to make hits, have impact, and that people are paying attention to what they release. Typically, for a main pop star, even the most casual listener, even a random person, can name at least a song or two from said artist. And because there's no official main pop boy, main pop girl, main pop star list, there's some debate as to who counts. Typically, I've noticed these main pop boys are also multi-talented. This can mean said main pop boy isn't just a talented singer, but maybe also a songwriter or producer or a good dancer. In my opinion, some current examples of main pop boys would be artists like Harry Styles, The Weeknd, Bad Bunny, Bruno Mars, and Ed Sheeran. I was also thinking of Justin Bieber, but maybe I would have been more inclined to say that a couple years ago because he's definitely taken a step back musically. But at one point, I feel like during my childhood, he was the ultimate main pop boy. Maybe it's another piece of the main pop person criteria, maybe it's just by coincidence, but all of the artists that I mentioned do have a #1 album. It's probably not so much a coincidence considering you need at least one, preferably more, successful eras to launch you into public consciousness. Additionally, I think all of them have Grammys as well, which again isn't necessarily a criteria, but I think it can speak to their standing. For over a decade now, it seems a pretty prevalent question as to where the pop boys have gone and why their numbers seem to be dwindling. I found a 2011 Pulse Music forum post questioning this very thing. I think inadvertently, because this person was serious, they hinted at how at the time homophobia and changing attitudes on fashion altered people's perception of male pop stars. They wrote, "I'll take a stab. In my opinion, you pretty much have to be gay or portray a gay image to be a male pop star, which for the most part is not popular. Most male pop stars bleed into other genres, and we don't really consider them pop stars per se. Take Bruno Mars and Enrique, for example." The gay image in question is likely anything that deviates from the established norms of male clothing at the time, which compared to past decades, centuries even, have become less flamboyant. Now, some will take any flamboyant, eye-catching, colorful, texture-rich costumes or choreography to automatically mean that artist is gay, queer, or even effeminate. While that sentiment has probably always existed in some form, it seemed like less of an issue in past decades, like the 70s, 80s, even some of the 90s, for example. And it's funny to me because the things Harry Styles wears that get some people up in arms today, from what I've seen, that would have still been considered relatively tame for a male pop star decades ago. Anecdotally, as someone who was in middle school in 2011, almost starting high school, I remember a lot of male pop stars being called gay, maybe just because their voice hadn't dropped, or like I said, maybe because of an extravagant outfit or something like that, but no actual evidence that would really indicate sexuality. Someone actually responded to that post I quoted and was like, "What does a gay image even mean?" And that person clarified that they did in fact mean the showy costumes and the theatrics. They said the theatrics expected from a Lady Gaga, a Kesha, a Katy Perry, again this is 2011, make them more memorable and in turn their careers last longer, and male pop stars on average don't have the level of their female counterparts, nor is that expected. In 2015, an Entertainment Weekly article was published titled "The Slow Curious Fate of the Male Pop Star," and it noted how pop was once male-dominated, but now the pop girls ruled the roost and the radio. They noted by that point, even though stars like Ed Sheeran and Sam Smith were prominent in selling massive amounts of records, whenever someone said the phrase pop star, it was likely most people would imagine a woman, and they cited Taylor Swift. The EW article wasn't insinuating male pop stars just ceased to exist, just that they existed in fewer numbers, and typically the focus was more so on their female counterparts. But still, a lot of the pop boys were putting up good numbers on the charts even if they weren't as talked about. One piece of evidence they noted was the smash popularity of Mark Ronson's Uptown Funk, which of course features Bruno Mars. The song went on to be the Billboard year-end single for 2015 and the decade-end single for the 2010s. I wanted to take a look at this trend today, so to speak, or at least this decade, to contextualize why it seems like we're on the hunt for a new pop boy. Because I agree with that article, even a decade later almost, that male pop stars still do chart very well, but the focus is often on the pop girls. Looking at Billboard's year-end singles from the past 5 years, I wanted to see how many songs in the top 5 could be counted as a pop boy song, the song being Pop 2, of course. And to be fair, I did count songs that were classified at least as a blend of pop and another genre. In 2023, 2 out of 5 of the top songs fell in this category. In 2022, 4 out of 5 fit this category. As It was number 2 for that year, and Harry Styles would go on to win Album of the Year for Harry's House the following year in a contentious win. In 2021, The Weeknd was the only male pop artist to occupy the top 5, taking 2 spots, one of which he shared with Ariana Grande. In 2020, The Weeknd topped the chart with Blinding Lights, the only other song being Circles, which does have pop or rock as one of its classified genres. And lastly, in 2019, 2 out of 5 songs fit, since WoW is not classified as pop. On screen, I have Spotify's most listened to artists in 2023 and Apple Music's 10 most streamed songs. For Spotify, the list is almost equally men and women, but 2 out of 3 of the top artists are pop boys, if you will, or at least utilizing a lot of pop in their discography. For the Apple Music songs, only 3 would fit the pop boy category, and I know a lot of people might not even really consider Creepin' or Last Night to be pop, though for both it is categorized there with other genres. So clearly, people are listening to the pop boys, and not even just the main pop boys. But like I said, I still would very much agree that pop has been very woman-focused and even woman-dominated lately. One of the recurring reasons posed is that so-called theatrical element that typically female pop stars give us more to look at, aka often more to talk about with each era. On average, they're going to have much more variation in their costumes, their hair color, their makeup, their overall presentation. That way there's something that attracts you to them, but also sets them apart from their peers. Might even be more so the case now since the female pop space has become even more saturated. In a lot of ways, this attraction does go beyond aesthetic, even if that's what draws you in, and it's that particular artist's expression, their creativity, their boldness, even their shamelessness that resonates with people. I would say there are current main pop boys who switch up their look more than most, like The Weeknd or Harry Styles, but I do agree it's no longer the norm or standard for them. Aside from that, typically, the standard across the board is higher for pop girls than pop boys, and most pop girls just can't get away with giving a lower energy, more chill, stationary performance unless you're like a Mariah Carey or an Adele. And God forbid a pop girl show up on stage in an outfit that is anything less than eye-catching or envy-inspiring. I saw so many posts saying some flavor of a pop boy could walk out on stage in a t-shirt and jeans and y'all will eat it up every single time or say nothing. And typically, to be clear, this is usually referring to Western pop stars because also in those forums, it was pointed out multiple times, this isn't the standard for men in some other pop subsects like K-pop, for example. Case in point, people are dragging Tate McRae on TikTok for it right now. Not being like, oh, I hate that specific athletic wear look, but why are you wearing it on stage in general? I thought that was her brand, like a Canadian athlete hockey dancer girl, something like that. While I'm sure some would never think to say the same thing about a male artist because they're upholding a double standard, even subconsciously, I'm also sure there are quite a few people who actually would because they personally want the visual standard for their pop stars in general to be higher. Hence the all the pop boys have gotten so boring discourse. In the Entertainment Weekly article I mentioned earlier, a senior vice president for iHeartMedia claimed, if you look at what these women are doing on social media, a lot of the female pop audience loves living in that world. They love knowing what they're wearing, who they're dating, if they're at Coachella and watching this band or that. I think that makes all the difference in the world. If we had this talk maybe 5 years ago, it would have been completely different. Now people are looking every hour at what Taylor's up to, or every few minutes what Katie is tweeting. It's changed the game. I'm not sure if there's a graph, any stats, I doubt it, but I also doubt anyone will disagree that the majority of the pop discourse on Stan Twitter, probably just social media, is focused on women and often on the main pop girls. It's because of some of the factors mentioned already, as well as the fact that a lot of Stan Twitter is made up of women and gay men, and there is an overlap there in most of the main pop girls' fan bases. Something I saw brought up a couple times is that the pop boys are boring because they can't sell sex like the pop girls can. I don't know what to fully make of this, and my opinions obviously are not the be-all, end-all. I do agree it's more common, maybe more expected to see a pop girl selling sex in some form, whether it's her choice, whether it's thrust upon her. But either way, it can be used as a way to discredit them or their music, so even when it is their choice, it's not always a win-win. But I don't know if I can get behind the argument that pop boys don't or can't sell sex. Maybe we don't see them as often in revealing outfits on stage, though you do see it. But on the other hand, a large part of a lot of many male pop stars' image is the idea that you will lust after them, see them as that boyfriend figure, and fantasize about dating them, marrying them, or even just hooking up with them. And often, like with their pop girl counterparts, this can happen to minors. Justin Bieber, Harry Styles, and Usher come to mind. And of course, this does continue into adulthood for many of them. So not saying misogyny isn't real, that women aren't sexualized, just that I disagree with the fact that pop boys aren't sexualized or don't sell sex, fantasy, or romance in some form, and that it's a tactic reserved solely for women. So while I've made the case that there are currently main pop boys, I have seen people questioning whether there will be a new pop boy or if Gen Z will have a main pop boy. I found another forum, shocking I know, from 2020, pondering where all the new pop boys are. The point was made that none of the current ones are Gen Z, as the examples they put forth were basically the same as mine. the Harry Styles, the Weeknd, the Bieber, Ed Sheeran, and also Post Malone. Then there were arguments as to whether Shawn Mendes or Charlie Puth would count. I think they're pop boys, they've had hits especially in the later 2010s, but I'm not sure if I would lump them in with today's main pop boys, just like I would have undoubtedly said Justin Bieber a couple years ago too, but maybe not today. And I'm sure some of y'all will disagree, so make your case in the comments. I'm not sure what the general consensus is with the Gen Z, even Gen Alpha boys around becoming pop stars, but I think this can be in part related to the fact that we don't see as many teenagers becoming pop stars anymore, regardless of gender. So the Gen Z contenders are pretty much all adults and have been for at least a little while. That being said, I do have two contenders for potential Gen Z main pop boys. I think so far for the 2020s, one of the biggest contenders has been Lil Nas X. Even in a video I did on him forever ago at this point, when I classed him as mainly a rapper, a lot of people were like, girl, delve more into his pop side, because a lot of his music is pop rap more so. Of course, he burst into the scene with Old Town Road, but was also able to follow that up with other hits like Panini, Call Me By Your Name, and Industry Baby. Also didn't realize this before, but he's also been nominated for Album of the Year twice already, getting his first for 7 in 2019, and then of course getting nominated again for Montero. Especially earlier in the decade, Lil Nas X was everywhere. Love him or hate him, he was charting well, amassing millions of views, and of course a fan base. Quite a lot of his artistry relies on both spectacle and controversy, which is part of the reason he was so divisive to some, but so refreshing and so entertaining to others. Then of course, he's one of the most prominent openly gay male artists among his peers, so his music offered something different on that level. Also thinking of things like the Industry Baby video, Lil Nas is definitely an example of a male artist who sells sex at times, and has played with sexualizing himself and his dancers the way we might often expect more from women. That song and video was actually one of the reasons Billboard named him as their second best pop star of 2021. I feel like certainly in his debut era, Lil Nas X was poised as a potential main pop boy. I'm not going to say it's 100% over and impossible now because anything can happen and he's only got one album out, but his sophomore era has been off to a bit of a shakier start. Looking at the first single, J. Christ, some just weren't moved by the song itself, and many others were upset he was using Christianity yet again in a way they felt was blasphemous and ridiculing their religion, or just felt it was a gimmick he'd used before and wanted something new. Though for Lil Nas X's part, he's often said this is kind of how he examines his often negative relationship with his religion and issued an apology to his Christian fans earlier this year after all the backlash over some of his J. Christ promo. Since then, I think he's only officially put out one more single, which was a song from his documentary, and the rest have been collabs. Instead, he's returned to SoundCloud where he dropped his Nazareti 2 EP, and those songs are more hip-hop than the more pop-leaning direction it seemed that he might take after Montero, or at least infuse a little bit more. His most recent official release is his feature on Camila's He Knows, and that's obviously more pop, with him singing and kind of talking at points in the track, rather than really rapping. I'm actually not sure what's going on with Lil Nas X's sophomore album, whether it's been delayed or scrapped, and he's just in his SoundCloud bag right now or what. I could not find anything super definitive. So we'll have to see what happens when his next album comes, if that momentum can be recaptured, or if Lil Nas X becomes a little more underground again with time. Another Gen Z artist I would say definitely has main pop boy potential is Jungkook. This is not really a hot take at all. I'm in no way the first to say this. Obviously, he's a seasoned performer at this point, debuting in BTS all the way back when he was 15. But having that experience, even the recognition from being in a massively popular group, while it gives you a boost absolutely, it doesn't always translate into a successful solo career. His debut album Golden came out last November, producing hit singles like 7, 3D, and Standing Next to You. I think it's clear he's got a push over here because aside from streaming his songs, I've actually heard those singles out and about in public, more so 3D and Standing Next to You. I'm sure this is partly because BTS is pretty well known in the US already. They're one of the groups that actually helped popularize K-pop over here, but also 2 of those singles featured an American artist, so possibly exposing Jungkook to their fan bases as well. 7 features Lotto and 3D features Jack Harlow, and then Standing Next to You also got a remix with Usher. Looking at the charts, all 3 singles from Golden did go top 5 on the Hot 100, with 3D and Standing Next to You peaking at number 5, and 7 was number 1 for a week. I think in the US at least, Jungkook fills a gap in a sense because I remember watching the Standing Next to You dance performance with Usher, which highball copyright, so I'm sorry I can't show it to you, and was like, what American or even Western main pop boy can I imagine dancing with Usher? And I came up short. Not to say that nationality matters, because I know someone's going to misinterpret that, but the point is that we just tend to have different expectations for our Western pop boys, and I think this is evidence of that. It would have also been interesting to see what could have happened with Jungkook had he not gone into his military service about a month after dropping Golden and had been able to ride that momentum of the singles a little bit more, doing more promotions, performances, things of the like. He won't be back until next June, but it's also been said BTS will come off hiatus at that point and resume group activities, so who knows what will happen. But like I said, strong contender, especially if he gets more time to be a solo artist. Now that I think about it, I'm kind of pondering over Troye Sivan too. He's not Gen Z technically, he's a younger millennial, but I would still classify him as someone becoming a little more mainstream relatively recently. And not even fully mainstream, but way closer to it than I would say like 5 years ago, or even beyond when he was putting out those first EPs. But he's not some niche like, oh my god, he's so underground, maybe you've heard of him type of artist either, especially considering he initially grew his platform making YouTube videos before getting into music. I'm thinking this because of his album from last year, Something to Give Each Other. I think it's the closest Troye's come to branching out of that sort of cult internet following. The music videos especially made noise. But still, I'm not sure because looking at how he's doing on the charts over here, it is kind of middling. He actually spoke about this back in 2019 saying, I haven't had this conversation with anyone else in fear because I hate it. I hate when pop stars sound bitter or blame any sort of lack of success on anything other than themselves. I don't want to come across like I'm saying that at all, but this just feels like a safe space where we can have an open conversation. Part of me wonders sometimes if I would be more commercially successful if I wasn't gay or not as in-your-face gay. 100% could be on the music, maybe the music just isn't good enough. In Pophead's surprise, surprise, I saw someone throw out the point that though he and Lil Nas X are pretty close in age, Troy started music years before him when being an openly gay pop star was still kind of taboo. We were coming out of it, but still wasn't as accepted as today. Maybe that affected how mainstream Troy was able to go. Though he himself wasn't dancing, the Rush music video is an example of a memorable choreo moment tied to a male pop artist. So much so, I'm sure the dance sequences are a big part of what got Troy or the video nomination for Best Music Video. And then Rush itself got nominated for Best Pop Dance Recording. So I'm not sure about Troy, mostly in terms of main pop boy potential where he stands, even if he is pretty popular and I enjoy his music, but I want to hear what y'all think. As always, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe so that you can stick around for more. And if you'd like to become a channel member and get early access to videos, the link is in the description. Again, thank you so much for watching. I love you all so very much, and we'll see you so very soon. Bye-bye.